So there's a lot of different definitions of what personality is. One of the ways that we like to describe it is that your personality influences how you act, react, and interact with others, yourself, and even with God. So our personality affects how we interact with other people. It affects how we act. It shapes what we do. It shapes our internal and external experience of. Hey y'all, welcome to the My Place podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Mary McSwain. I'm joined, as I normally am, by my dad, Jay McSwain.
Good to see you, Mary.
It's good to see you too. I feel like I haven't seen you in days at this point.
I know it, but we were together last week, wasn't it? But
So.
It has been several days, yes.
What have you been up to since then?
It's been busy.
If y'all don't know, this is a lot of times where we catch up on our life is when we actually sit down here.
Well, we kind of entered fall, so the weather outside is unbelievable. And the last 2 days, I've actually been at baseball, and I'm going to tell you a really cool thing that happened. Sunday, I was there, and I get a text from a lady, and she goes, "Pastor Jay, you've never met me, but I work in," she said, where the food place was at the stadium that she worked. And she said, "I can't come because you start the service after I have to be at work, but I hear you and see you every Sunday." And she goes, "Would you just pray for me that I could get a Bible? I don't own a Bible." And I texted her back and I said, "Well, you know what? I'll come up here tomorrow night and I'm going to bring you a Bible." And so I went, and I was telling one of our baseball wives that I was in the Barnes & Noble debating between buying the $20 Bible or the $50 Bible. And I thought I really wouldn't want to read that $50 or that $20 Bible. And I looked at the $50 Bible and I said, I'd really like that. And it's a lot more readable. Print's a little bit bigger. And the Lord was telling me when I was talking to this player's wife, He was telling me, "Jay, the Word of God in a more readable, easy to read format may change her life. And that $30 is not going to change your life. Buy her the $50 Bible." So I bought the Bible. I went up to the stadium and I found her. And I walked up and gave it to her. And she came around from where she was working in front of people there and just hugged me and broke down crying. And she was telling people, "He came, he told me he'd get me a Bible, and he came." And it was like, and she's in her probably 50s. She had never had a Bible, and it was her first Bible, and she just sobbed holding on to me. So that's what I've been doing, and that's one of the cool things about doing life and ministry in places that God gets and gives us opportunities. So that's me, and cool thing in my life. What's been going on? Because you've been busy too.
I have been busy. I will say you send out a text to our family and our almost family, Andrew, who will be official in April when he marries my sister. But you sent out a text every day to us with the devotional that we do as a family. And you sent that picture, and I didn't get the whole story, but you gave us a bit of that story. And I'll be honest, I almost teared up in the car this morning when I saw that. I was at a red light. I wasn't texting and driving, but I almost teared up when I saw that, just because what an incredible testimony of your faithfulness to do the work that the Lord has called you to. And that when we are faithful to God, He will give us stories like that will impact so many people's lives, even just from sharing it in a conversation like this, sharing it in our family group chat. And
I sent y'all a picture of me and her with the Bible. So that's how you saw that. But yeah.
While I was not at the Brave Stadium this past weekend, I had a place workshop at the church that I am working at North Hall Church. And it was an all-day Sunday because
Which is a little different than the way you've normally been doing them.
We tell people when they teach place, do whatever works for you, whether that is Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, whether that's a Friday, Saturday, which you do a lot. And we wanted to try something new, just give people a one-day commitment where they could commit to one afternoon and be done with it. So they came to church Sunday morning, and then we fed them lunch, and all day Sunday afternoon, I got them out by dinner time. But it was a really great turnout. We had a lot of different age groups, from older women. We had some widows in there that had some really incredible stories. We had one young couple, and just seeing even how the young couple could encourage those older women and men and their heart for one another, and just all of the experience and perspective that was in that room, and the smaller setting, being able to share their purpose and objective of why they were there. And even the people there hearing other people's reasons was encouraging to them, and just seeing answered prayers of people praying for more direction of where to go in the church, or having a conversation 2 weeks ago about wanting to learn more. And then they see that we're offering place, and just the ways that people got there, and the ways that the Lord answered prayers, and getting to share answered prayers in the way that the Lord was working. So I had a great Sunday afternoon. It was a long day, but we had a great time, and I'll be coaching them. We're training some coaches at the
You've
church right now
actually already
too.
started coaching. I mean, you
I did.
finished on Sunday and the next day started coaching. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, and we'll coach. Everyone who came is going to go through a coaching session, which is where obviously we really believe a lot of the power lies, is in that one-on-one coaching. And we're training a couple coaches at the church as well. And they were at the workshop. They're going to sit in on some coaching sessions, which is one of the best ways to learn how to be a coach, is to sit in and just watch someone else do it and listen to other people without the pressure of having to give them answers or questions.
Yeah.
But today we're not talking about coaching, now that we've caught up on everything that's been going on. In last week's episode, we got into the abilities part of the place assessment. In episodes past, we've discussed personality, spiritual gifts. Now we're on to abilities.
And we'll probably go back to those because we're not going to exhaust them in those few weeks, but
yes, we'll probably go back, but right now we've been talking about abilities. In those other past episodes on personality and spiritual gifts, we did talk a lot about how your personality and your spiritual gifts can interact and influence with one another, but the same can be said of your personality and your abilities. And now that we've laid the groundwork for what abilities are in the last episode, I want to talk a little bit about how your personality and your abilities can interact with one another.
So let's just go back and do a little quick review of how we use the word abilities. We don't use abilities, can you sing, dance, sew, or write? How we use abilities is what is the optimal, and the key word is environment, that you'll be competent and fulfilled through things like your personality and spiritual gifts, and that you will be fulfilled and you'll flourish in your ways that you demonstrate passion and the life experiences that you have had. So the key is competent and fulfilled, because you can be competent in something but not fulfilled. You can be fulfilled in something but not competent. And we believe, while in place, A is the middle letter, we believe that the way that we use abilities is where competency and fulfillment come together in the way we use and describe abilities.
Since we're also talking about personality, since we haven't been on that subject in a while, we use the DISC model in our place assessment, which represents the 4 different personality styles. Could you briefly walk us through each of the 4 personality styles, just to lay some groundwork for our discussion today?
So the D is the very decisive, very driven, oftentimes very dominant personality. The I is the inspiring, the influencing, the optimistic type personality. The S is the steady, the stable, wants everyone included, doesn't like conflict. And the C is the conscientious, conservative, consistent, wants all the I's dotted and T's crossed.
So there's a lot of different definitions of what personality is. One of the ways that we like to describe it is that your personality influences how you act, react, and interact with others, yourself, and even with God.
Mhm.
So our personality affects how we interact with other people. It affects how we act. It shapes what we do. It shapes our internal and external experience of things like our environment. And our abilities really focus in the place assessment on the environment that we're competent and fulfilled in. In the place profile, a lot of times we tell people that the different elements, while they do stand alone, they're like puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
They each stand alone as individual puzzle pieces, but they're really meant to come together to create the full picture of who God made you to be. That's why they influence and interact with one another. And one of the ways that we like to explain that is that different elements of your place profile can balance one another. They can temper one another. They can conflict with one another at times. They can hinder the effectiveness or impact of the other, or they can enhance one another. And I think when we look at how your personality and your abilities interact, all of that can be true in different instances. So, what I'd like us to do today is just give some people examples of what some of those interactions can look like, how they can articulate that for themselves, maybe identify that and see that in their own life so that people can start to understand how you can look at a profile, your place profile, your personalities and your abilities, your personalities and your environment or your flourish, and they can see how they work together, maybe how at times they conflict with one another, but ultimately how they can enhance one another. So let's just walk through each personality style as we often do in these conversations.
So we're going to have to do this pretty quickly because we're going to look at how they temper, balance, conflict with each of the four styles, with each of the six personalities, with each of the six ability types, right?
Just about. We might not be
Yeah.
able to walk through every single scenario,
Okay.
but as I was thinking about it, there were some that were very obvious. When I teach place, and I know when you do, we give some of those
Yeah.
examples of how they interact. So we don't necessarily need to walk through every single style and every single ability, but maybe some examples which each of the personalities
We're
will
going to
help.
touch on them.
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to start with the D personality first, with maybe the enterprising, or let's take the D with the social ability,
Okay.
because I am a D. I am like a spiker D, but yet one of my top abilities is social. And so the D, I love to say this all the time when I teach it. You've heard it so many times. I would love ministry if it wasn't for.
People.
Yes, I say that every time. So you can, if I ever have a moment as I'm getting a little older and I forget, you can just start filling in the blanks for me. But I say that and everybody laughs. I love ministry if it wasn't for people, because all I am is task oriented. But one of my top abilities is social. And the way we describe that in the workbook is people that are social, they like to be near the center of groups. They prefer solving problems by discussing them with others. And so when it comes to my personality, it gets balanced with my social ability. And I like to always laugh and tell people, and some people that know when I say this certainly know because they've experienced it. I can be talking to you and I'll act like I have nothing in the world to do but sit here and you and I talk forever and ever and ever, and something will click in my brain, a task that I need to go do, and I'm the rudest person in the world, like shutting, because D's can shut things off really quick. And I can be rude in that respect because the D just kicks in, but it does balance my task orientedness. At times, my D, it conflicts with my social ability, because sometimes I need to be working on a task and I'm just wanting to hang out with people so they conflict. But again, it does temper the social ability does temper my strong D personality that is nothing but about getting the job done, even if it means running over people. So that's a little bit with the D and looking at like an ability like social.
It's interesting as you spoke to that, there were ways that that combination conflicted with itself, but there are also ways that that combination balanced and enhanced itself. And I think that can be true. You've sat down and seen more profiles than I have, but I think that can be true with every combination, every way that God has fearfully and wonderfully made everybody. Is at times people think, well, this combination seems to make more sense, or this would probably work better for people, or I must have a bad combination because I've experienced a lot of conflict in my life. But I think you would agree with this is that every combination, in the same way that every personality has both strengths and weaknesses, every combination of personality and ability is going to have ways that it might conflict with itself, but it's also going to be able to temper and to balance and enhance itself. One of your other top abilities, while we're still talking about the D personality, is artistic. And D personalities are typically very task oriented. They're very driven, very determined, very bold and blunt at times.
Can be insensitive at times.
Can be insensitive, can be unemotional at times, but that artistic ability causes people and is reflected in people's emotions. People who are artistic tend to be very creative, very emotional, and very sensitive. And so that artistic side of someone's abilities, if you're a D personality, it balances out and softens some of those harder edges that makes you more sensitive. So while that combination on the surface might not seem to make sense to people, there's so much beauty to how that balances and tempers your personality. But on the surface, it just might not make sense to people.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I say this all the time. If I say something to you or to anyone and it offends you or it offends them, and they come up to me and they let me know I offended them, or if I'm aware, sometimes I'm aware the moment I do it that I did it. It's like, why did I do that? Why did not have the impulse control? Sometimes D's don't have that. But if you come up to me and I evaluate what I said to you, and let's say that I think I'm still right in what I said, it will still bother me because I'm artistic, I'm sensitive. But if you're a D and you're not artistic and you offend someone and they come up to you and you still think you're right, you'll probably be like, well, that's their problem. But that's where I feel like for me, it balances me a lot because sometimes it does put a governor on me, a guardrail about being impulsive and just saying what I think is right.
Well, there are four other abilities that could be combined with the D personality. I do want to walk through all four of the personality styles. Unfortunately, we just won't get to every single combination today. But let's talk a little bit about the I personality. What are some
Yeah.
combinations with the I personality that could temper, enhance, balance, or even conflict with their personality and their abilities?
Well, the I personality that it gets enhanced is obviously the social ability. The I personality's never seen a party they didn't like, and the S loves to live in the moment, just like the I loves to. But let's get to the part. I actually pulled out a profile. I sat down yesterday with a 18-year-old young man that's graduated from high school trying to figure out what he wants to do in life. And he was the I person. I and D were the same. I mean, like almost all of his scores were either I or D. So his personality is, as we laugh a lot, fire, ready, aim. Whereas yours is, as a C, is ready, ready, ready. Are we ever going to aim this thing? No, we got to make sure that we're ready. But he is, instead of fire, ready, aim, he are ready, aim, fire. He is fire, ready, aim. And that was evident in his personality. But here's where he got tempered. One of his highest abilities was investigative. And he talked about if it's something, he said, I don't really like school that much. He's trying to decide whether he's going to go to college or not. But as he talked about things that he really, really likes, he even used the word, I'll put my time researching things to talk about something I want to be an expert in. And another thing that was really interesting to me, one of his highest ability was conventional. most D and I's don't like boundaries and guardrails at all. I mean, they want to be like a stallion running on out in a field with no controls on them at all. But yet, when he talked, I could see the things where he wants boundaries and structures as long, and this is what he said to me, and this was so interesting. I do this a lot, but I'd never heard it. He's D and I and D, same on each one. He said, as long as I agree with them. And so that was the I and the D. He says, I like structure and boundaries as long as I agree with them. And that's the conventional. I like the boundary and the structure. And the D and the I is as long as I agree with them. And so, I didn't say this, but I really believe that this young man, that over time when he matures, I think he'll learn just like I'm learning. Hopefully, he doesn't have to wait to get my age, but he will learn when that D and that I needs to be that authority, and that C personality that puts under guidelines and structure needs it. But that is the I personality. But again, you could take all the combinations, but that's one right there.
When I was considering the I personality, one of the abilities that I was considering paired with the I personality was the artistic ability. And I think in a way, it tempers some of even the strengths of the I personality. I personalities are great at living in the moment. They are carefree, they're optimistic, they want to be at the party, in the party, a part of the party. They want to live in the moment. And oftentimes, that's one of their greatest strengths. And they have a beautiful strength of helping other people live in the moment as well. But I think at times this causes them to be insensitive to the moments that other people are living in
Yes.
when it's not the same moment as theirs, or when it's not as exciting of a moment as theirs. And we mentioned earlier that people who are artistic, they're sensitive, they're emotional, they're creative. And I think in I personality with that artistic ability, their sensitivity and their abilities makes them more sensitive to their sometimes insensitive nature in their personality style. So it allows them to be able to step out of the moment that they're living in and into the moment of other people. So I think that combination specifically tempers and balances what at times is a strength of the I personality, but can sometimes be a weakness. But that weakness is tempered by what it says in their abilities section.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the S personality. What's a combination that might temper, conflict, or enhance one another between the S personality and one of their abilities?
So, as you know, I see everything through the lens of conversations with people. This morning, I was on a Zoom meeting with a staff member at a church out in Texas, and tonight they're meeting, launching a new team. There's a team of 10 of them. And this person is somewhat the de facto leader of the group, even though if you look on the org chart of the staff member, she's not at the top of the org chart. Actually, their executive pastor is on this team. But she is an S personality, and her top ability is enterprising. So S's are always comfortable behind the scenes, right? S's don't always want to just naturally step up and be in charge. But when we were talking about her leading this team, she's enterprising. I like to lead and persuade. She didn't even realize she was using this. She kept, I think, 4 times in about 5 or 6 minutes when I said to her at the very beginning, as you know I do often, what do you want to accomplish in our meeting this morning? She used the word about creating teams. She didn't use the word, I want to lead teams. I don't want to be in, I want to make sure that our team is created. And so while she's an S, and we don't always think of S's as the ones that step up, I suspect, almost can guarantee, I wouldn't bet because we're not supposed to bet, there's going to be harmony on this team, and they're going to work very well together because the S in her is going to make sure everybody's on the same page. And she did a beautiful job of putting the team together that is really different. There's 10 of them, and they're really different. But she's going to be the leader of the team, but she's going to do it by creating harmony and helping everyone see that we're all different for a reason. And so I see that as a great, great combination of the S personality with the ability of enterprising. Um, S's that are conventional, or the conventional ability, they seem to somewhat go hand in hand. They would probably enhance one another. The S doesn't want to get in trouble and always wants to do the right thing. And conventional people want their boundaries and they want their structure. So those kind of get enhanced. But as I said, and of course the S with social, because S's are very people oriented and the social ability likes to be near the center of groups. But the S, whereas the D is more task oriented and can live in the moment as a social person, the S ability or the S personality with the social ability, they probably just want to always stay in the moment. And so that can at times be a conflict when they do have other responsibilities.
The enterprising ability that you mentioned earlier, people who are enterprising, they typically have a good facility with their words and they like to lead and persuade other people. S personalities are typically very caring, very gentle, and very genuine. So even as you think about the combination of an S personality with that enterprising ability, they will be able to lead and persuade others because I believe they're very compelling, but in being very compelling and persuasive, they're also very genuine and authentic. So people will follow their leadership because they see not only are they persuasive, but they're caring and they're honest and they're genuine. And even with the conventional ability, one of the weaknesses is of the S personality styles that oftentimes they lack drive, they lack motivation. They're so steady, they oftentimes don't have that motor to push them forward. So if they're not in that conventional environment where they have structure, where they have rules and expectations, that is because they are conventional. If they don't have the right environment, they will never be able to go forward because they need that structure, those guardrails to guide them along and push them forward, which can temper one of the weaknesses of their personality, but they have to be in the right environment for their personality to flourish, which is the whole part of the ability section, is that when you're in the right environment, your personality and your spiritual gifts will flourish.
Yes.
But moving right along, we have one more personality
Man,
style.
this goes fast, doesn't it?
I know. Last but not least, the C personality style. What are some combinations of a C personality with certain abilities that enhance one another, that temper, or that conflict with one another?
So remember I told you I always look at this through the lens of people. And so I'm looking at the people that I'm seeing it through. So you are a C personality. And where it gets enhanced is you're very conventional. You like structure. You don't like getting out of the box. And this, I made a real big mistake last week. And you were living in the fruit of the Spirit when it happened. We were trying to process something, and I go all over the map. And I could see you, see personality conventional. I could see you getting irritated and frustrated in our meeting. And you were, yes, you were pretty rude in how you ended the meeting.
It was.
And I will give you credit though. The minute you walked out of that meeting, it dawned on me, you, as your boss, the one leading you, I was wrong in doing it. I should have done what I did after you walked out and I put it on paper and thought through all my crazy ideas that I couldn't get any clarity on. I did when I put it on paper. But to your credit, through the Spirit, young lady, you walked in 10 minutes later and said, I'm sorry for how I acted. But it does, it can sometimes be a hindrance, the C personality or with the conventional ability, when you show your frustration when things aren't always in the box. To your credit, you came back. But here's where they can conflict with each other. The C personality with you also have the investigative ability. And so while the C wants everything structured, the investigative ability doesn't always like structure, but that is a good thing because they balance one another and they a lot of times make you have conflict inside of you. And for a lot of people that watch this, we sit here talking, we understand the tool pretty well, but they have these conflicts inside and they don't even know why. And that's why I'm so passionate about those of you that watch learning, understanding yourself, but being able to help other people also. So that's a little bit where I see the C, where they can balance, enhance, temper, and even at times, Mary, they can conflict with one another.
We talked about the beginning, what we've been doing, coaching people. You pulled out a profile just now of someone that you sat down with and coached. And when we say coaching, we're saying sitting down with someone and having a conversation, maybe over a cup of coffee, but it's over their profile that they filled out that has their personality, their spiritual gifts, their abilities, their passions, their life experiences. And in those coaching sessions, we get to put that puzzle piece together with them, those puzzle pieces together with them. And that's how we have come to understand how to talk about this at such a high level. But we believe that it's valuable for you because as you start to acquire this language, as you start to become more fluent in this language, you can put your own puzzle pieces together of who you are so that you can articulate that frustration. When you walk out of those meetings that are frustrating, or when you are frustrated because maybe you're not in the right environment, you have the ability and the language to point that out and to articulate that, and then to be able to tell yourself or tell someone else, hey, this is why I reacted this way. Or you can tell yourself, this is why you've been so frustrated. This is why that meeting you just had with your boss was so difficult, because there wasn't any structure. But again, that's also why it's so important that you're not just looking at yourself, but that you're walking in the fruits of the Spirit. Because when I walked back into your office, that was not necessarily my personality, but the Spirit within me telling me that you need to go be more kind.
Your personality didn't like to say, I'm sorry.
It didn't.
Okay.
It didn't. But
that's for a lot of us at times, isn't it?
And that's why it's so important to walk in step with the Spirit so that you bear the fruits of the Spirit, because all of this is valuable. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. But if we're walking more in step with the flesh than we are with the Spirit, even working to the best of our abilities, it's going to be in vain when we're not empowered and led by the Spirit. But with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us today as we walked through all of these different puzzle pieces. If you want to learn more information, if you want to start putting the puzzle pieces together of who you are, I would highly encourage you to start by taking the place assessment. Start by identifying some of those puzzle pieces, putting them together, and then learning how you can articulate that by keeping up with these conversations. We're going to talk more about abilities and spiritual gifts in the weeks to come. So I would encourage y'all, share this conversation with your friends, follow, subscribe so that you can keep up with these conversations so that you can begin and continue to put the puzzle pieces together of who God has made you to be so that you can be and do all that He's created you for.